Hey you guys, this is Josh
and Carolyn
with Homesteading Family, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pantry Chat, Food for Thought.
All right.
And we are covering homemade dairy.
We are covering homemade dairy. Yep. What happens with the milk when it gets into the kitchen?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How we use the dairy, our dairy products on the homestead, and just the different functions that we found that to make the best use of it, because we want to value add.
Yeah, we want to use it, every bit of it that we can.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but I got to tell you guys, today's pantry chat almost didn't happen. Josh and I were ready, and the power went out. In fact, we weren't going to be outside, which we may not be able to stay outside because there's a storm coming our way. The clouds are really dark over us. But in the building of Mom and Dad's house right here.
And you probably hear the equipment in the background right now. That's the source of our electrical problems.
Our electrical problems. They turned off the power and they didn't give us any warning on that. So we were going to be down in the new preserving kitchen and show you guys that, give you a sneak peek of that. But there's no lights down there. Which
we did give a video post. I'm sorry, a photo post on Facebook today,
on Facebook.
Sneak peek.
Yeah. Okay, so some of you guys have seen a sneak peek of that kitchen, but we'll probably get down there in the next week or two, do a pantry chat down there.
We will, and we would have done it down there because we have a generator for backup, but it doesn't power the whole house. It just powers the essentials.
Yeah, it's not set up all
anyway,
the way
so here we are, we're outside, and it's a beautiful day, but we may find ourselves finding another spot.
Yeah.
Anyways, we better get on with it.
Okay, on with it.
So what's going on with you?
I got to decorate another kitchen, and I have been canning
and
canning.
Is cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. So it's really fun. It's really pretty and cheery, and we've gotten to bring in a lot of the elements from the old kitchen that a lot of you guys started following us back when we were in the old place. What was that, a year and a half? It's been a while now.
It's been a year
a
and
while
a half.
ago.
Yep.
And so we got to use a lot of the things that we had saved from that kitchen, like the cabinets and different elements like that. So that's a lot of fun to be out there. And aside that, I have been getting food put up, especially the greens. We're just raking in the greens right now.
Yeah, and
you can see a bunch of them back here, right back here, and we're just harvesting.
And that's one of our strategies, right? For food production is we grow semi-intensively,
right? And
then a lot of our root crops and leafy greens we thin along the way and eat either as babies, or you are drying them, and turning them, a lot of it, into powder, right? For green smoothies. Yeah. And maybe some for broths and whatnot in the wintertime.
This brand new thing that you can do with your super greens powder that I haven't even tried yet, but I'm going to try it, and I'm going to let you guys know how it goes. It's called, I think it said congee, and it's an Indian dish where they take powdered dried greens and they turn it into a side dish for wintertime.
Wow.
And so I'm really excited. I mean, you can see how good that would be. What if
the powdered greens themselves, they are turning into a side dish.
Yeah, so you rehydrate them in like chicken broth, and you add some garlic, some roasted garlic, and maybe some cheese. I don't know, this is my rendition. I don't know if that's how they do it. But it got me to thinking about how good that could be. So yes, I'm doing some extra powdered greens right now, just with those things in mind.
Yeah, cool.
Some of that
gonna look forward to that. Her experiments usually turn out really, really good.
Usually, not always, but usually.
And I usually get to be the first one to try them.
If they go badly, that's called being a guinea pig. What have you been up to?
Well, working on that kitchen and building that kitchen out and getting it ready. And it has turned out really awesome, kind of like our old kitchen, which we loved and a lot of you guys really liked, but improved.
Yes.
And so
very much.
Very, very cool. So really just been working to get that done so that we can get on both with preservation season and with canning class that I know you are already filming on and need to get onto the stove. So that has been the big push, and we've got equipment all over the place. We're getting power in. We're having to set a power pole, and that's our power issues today. And just a lot of projects around here. It's a first year on the homestead, and while we had a lot of infrastructure that is fantastic with getting Mom and Dad set up and our own needs, just a lot of projects,
a lot of stuff going on.
First year projects for getting things set up.
Hey, how are those meat chickies doing?
Oh, the meat chickies are doing great.
I haven't seen them in the last few days.
Yeah,
I need to get out there.
They're doing real well. They're growing fast like those little guys do. And we're also building new chicken tractors. I know a lot of you guys asked to see the chicken tractors. Right. Well, I don't have them right now because of the move. We left the old ones behind and gave them to somebody. They were the Joel Salatin style. A lot of you guys are familiar with that. If you're not, check them out. They are great chicken tractors. They're inexpensive and easy to use and time tested. I'm actually going to go with an A-frame style this time. I think it's better for our environment, and I want to be able to walk into it. And there's a few reasons for that, and I will do a video once they're done, or some photos or something, because a lot of you have asked for that, and show you how I build these new ones and why and all that. So that's probably going to be next week's project. Yeah. But they're growing fast, so that's why I think of it, because you guys know if you raise them how fast they go. You get about 3 weeks. Yeah, I like to get them out in 2 weeks if I can, and the weather's good, as soon as possible. But we're probably going to need 3, so we got to stay on it to get those guys out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, there's a personal thing coming up here tomorrow. I don't know. We don't always bring in all the real personal stuff here, but it's our anniversary tomorrow.
Yay.
That's really exciting.
17 years.
17 years.
You're awesome. Another one of those
public displays of affection. Sorry, guys.
We like each other. We can't help it.
We do. Most of the time, we like each other.
True.
So anyways.
Well, happy anniversary.
Yeah, you too.
All right.
Yeah. And thanks in advance for everybody else who's going to say happy anniversary. So that should be fun. But yeah, on to
question of the day.
The question of the day.
And this is not one person on the last video about meat chickens. A lot of you asked as far as processing about skinning them instead of plucking, and I know a lot of you do that, and you asked, what do we do? Have we done that? So the answer is yes, we have. There have been moments when that's been a good solution, but only because we needed to, not because we would choose to.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely want that skin on when it comes to the kitchen. And some of the reasons for that is, I mean, number one is flavor, really.
Oh,
anytime
the flavor
you can
is
bake
in the
that
fat.
chicken with the skin on and get that fat in there. But number two is the nutrition of that fat. I mean, getting healthy fat is one of the harder nutritional things to produce yourself on the homestead. It's, you know, just not in high abundance. And there's a reason for that. Proportionally, it's right. But you want to take advantage of your fat sources when you can get those healthy fats in on the homestead. But number three, we just don't want to waste it. You know, that's just a real waste to throw away that kind of nutrition on the homestead. Now, I get why people do that. And like you've said, we've been in that position where the answer is we just are going to have to skin them because we can't hand pluck.
Yeah, we're doing a couple. It's not worth getting the equipment out. I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but all the way around, it's a better use. We've worked hard to produce those chickens, and that is part of the food source and part of both the value, both in the taste and the flavor and in the nutrition. So we don't want to take that off. It's worth plucking. They are worth plucking.
You pull that beautiful roasted chicken out of the oven in that cast iron pan, and it's just roasted to perfection. You know, you'll know exactly why you need that skin on, because it doesn't do that if it doesn't have the skin.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. We don't do it if we don't have to. Yeah. Before we get into main topic though, because that was kind of a short answer, I wanted to address A2A2, which we talked about last week.
Okay, the A2A2 proteins in milk. Some people had no idea what we were talking about. We didn't do a great job at introducing what that was.
True. Okay.
But some cows produce milk that has a different protein than other cows. And we're talking about the supposed desirability and better digestibility of the A2A2 gene in cows that produce the A2A2 milk.
Right, and it's being sold as an across the board overall better milk.
Right.
And you know, for us, we're not convinced of that.
Yeah.
However, a lot of you responded, and we got quite a few emails and some of you on the last video thread with personal experience, detailed personal experience that A2A2 has helped you.
Yes.
And so we want to recognize that, because I think we said that we didn't know anybody personally.
No,
and so that was great. That was great to hear that it does help some people and with digestibility, and quite clearly. So thanks for sharing that. And for those of you that have thought about it or considering it, there's a little bit of anecdotal evidence that whether or not it's an overall health benefit for the general population, clearly there are people that have difficulties digesting cow's milk, and A2 has helped some people very specifically. They've gone gone back and forth. A couple of the emails I got, they had really tested it out and were absolutely certain that the A2 made the difference in their ability to consume cow's milk.
Okay.
So hopefully that's a help to somebody out there.
Good. Yeah. Well, and thanks for sharing those experiences. That really helps us as we're sharing information be able to give a better rounded picture. Yeah.
We would still hold the line though. The jury's out as far as overall for the general population. Is it just a healthier milk and worth the cost that you might pay, or worrying about it that much outside of, you know, some specific issues?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Not so sure.
Yeah. I'd agree. Perfect.
What do you want to do here? I think we better go continue this.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're
getting wet.
Getting chased under roof. So we will be right back with the core topic.
Somewhere else.
Yep. Okay. All right.
We're here.
We took shelter in the greenhouse because it was close.
And it's actually coming down pretty good. So
that's good. We're thankful for the rain.
Yes, it's very nice to have the rain. We've been having every few days. We've been getting some pretty good rain. So
real good.
All right.
Okay, so homemade dairy. So we're bringing in all this milk into the kitchen. Working hard to take care of in our case, the dairy cow and all the work that comes with her.
Right.
And in comes the milk. But we want a lot more out of that than just a glass of milk.
Just a glass of milk or a latte.
Those are both good.
Those are both good, and we like those. But we want more than that. So, now, the first thing that you really got to understand when you bring milk in from a cow or when you're getting it directly from a farmer is that whole milk from a cow, which we call cream line milk, is different than whole milk from the store.
Right.
One, it's not homogenized, so your cream is going to float to the top, especially if it's a cow, if you're working with cow's milk instead of goat's milk. Right. But two, there's a lot more of it than you would get in whole milk in the store. Whole milk from the store is like 4% milk. And 4%. 4% fat.
Fat, right.
Yeah, it's like 4% fat. You get a lot more fat than that when you have cream line milk coming off of most cows. Now, I've heard that some commercial, breeds of cows really don't have that much fat, like a Holstein, high production Holstein.
Out of them probably for production.
But if you're dealing with most of your homestead type cows, you're going to have a lot more cream than that. So that is something that's really important to realize, is that your milk is going to be a whole lot creamier if all you do is shake it up.
Let me just answer a question real quick that we're going to get asked, and that is about how much cream can you expect?
Yeah.
That is a high variability depending on a lot of factors.
Yes.
Certainly the cow breed, but even more than the cow breed, the cow's genetics, the breeder.
Right.
And the specific line of cow.
Yes.
And then you're going to get into, hey, you're getting a little thunder out there,
right?
Then you're going to get into your own food source, what you're feeding the cow.
Right.
And how. So, I mean, we want to see what, a quart of cream out of a gallon or better.
That would be,
that would be pretty ideal, and less than that is okay.
Right.
And we're definitely, with this cow that we have this year, less than that.
She's a little bit less, but another factor that can affect how much cream you're going to get is whether or not you have the calf on the cow.
Absolutely.
Also.
Right.
Because the majority of your cream is going to come out of the cow at the very end.
Right.
Does that sound wrong? Did I say that wrong?
Not that end.
The very last of the milk that's going to come out is going to be highest in the cream content. And if you have a cow who's waiting for that calf to be put back on her,
she's going to hold back.
You have milked.
She's often going to hold back
a little bit of that cream. So that can affect your cream amount too.
Right.
So it really, really depends. But you do want, I mean, the more fat, in our opinion, the more fat, the better.
Right.
And
that's high value.
That's very high value.
That's definitely where the butter comes from.
Right.
And we would even like to have some left over to leave into our cheese making milk.
Yes.
So cream is very, very valuable, but it does vary. And so in my reading and experience, just trying to call out a standard, you should get this much cream from a certain cow, it just doesn't work that way. There's a lot of variabilities, and we want the most cream we can get.
Yeah.
But you got to live with what we get.
And that goes one step further. Is there's a lot of variability as to how much butter you will get from the same amount of cream.
Mm-hmm.
And that varies through the season off your own cow. It varies for all the different reasons that you just said too.
Right.
And so, you know, it's just, there's a lot of variability, and you're not dealing with this standardized product anymore, which is a wonderful thing, but you have to learn to be responsive to it.
So there's one question to ask and one thing to know about if you are looking at getting a dairy cow, knowing your own needs, your own wants, and how important butter is to you, and cheese and that cream content. That's very important to us.
Yeah.
So we wanted to get a cow that is producing a high cream content.
Right.
So that as that milk gets into the kitchen, one of the top products is butter, right?
One of the top products is butter, and so the important thing, sorry guys if it's
it's
loud,
coming down. We will
this is a really
try
good
to get the volume up ourselves.
Yeah, we'll talk a little louder here. But one of the first things we need to do is skim our milk in order to get that cream off. The best way to do that is to let your milk sit undisturbed in the refrigerator, of course, for 24 to 48 hours. It just keeps getting thicker and thicker, and more of it comes to the top. So the longer you can put that off, the better. So right now, I wait for at least 24 hours before I skim. I've got a loud voice, but this is
coming down.
It's coming down.
Yeah, you can do it.
So then at that 24-hour mark, I go ahead and skim the milk, and I get that cream separated off. And then once a week, I take all of that. I just feel like I'm yelling at this point.
Yeah, and we just break it.
We may have to stop for a minute.
So you were talking about the cream.
Right. So once, oh, that's a lot better sound. So once we get that cream skimmed, I tend to make butter about once a week. And I do that by using my my just Bosch mixer. You could use a stand mixer. You can use, some people use a blender. Sometimes the kids like to just stick it in a jar and shake it up like that. And, you know, that goes actually pretty quickly. But what you have to do when you make the butters, you have to wash the butter afterwards. And you've got to make sure you get all of that buttermilk out so that it stores well. And then you want to salt it. And then we like to portion it into 1 pound pieces, or a half pound. I'm sorry, we do half pound sections, and just wrap that up in some saran wrap and get that into the freezer. And so we like to put a lot of butter into our freezer during the high milk production months of the summer.
So what's your favorite tool, the most productive tool in our kitchen for churning the butter?
My Bosch mixer that I use for bread making. That is my absolute favorite. So.
You know, and this is a good point about homestead skills too, and modern homesteading versus having older skills. Mm-hmm. It is important for us to have the older skills. So we can churn by hand, we can mix in a jar. There's lots of methods to get that done.
Right.
But it's also, for a modern lifestyle, not productive. So,
yes.
and this runs through in a lot of different topics, but it's just a good thing to realize there. If you're making it by hand, that's great.
Yeah.
But it also takes a lot of time, so we want that skill to do it if we need it. Mm-hmm. But something like, in this case, the Bosch mixer,
yes,
which is also what you use for your bread, I believe,
mm-hmm.
is a fantastic tool for churning up the butter and,
really
and getting that done in good time.
Yeah.
And using that time wisely is important.
Yes. So one of the other things that we make in our kitchen with the milk that is kind of the, I guess it's kind of the Swiss Army knife of the dairy world, is our kefir. And we use that, honestly, we don't actually drink kefir, plain kefir, that much. We do enjoy it. We like it. It's very good. And sometimes I'll do a secondary ferment where you get nice and fizzy.
Ooh,
and it's got like strawberries blended into it. Oh, it's really delicious. But what I really use that for is kind of a mother culture for all things dairy related. And so I don't buy thermophilic or mesophilic culture, which is the cheese cultures that you need for any other product. I just use my kefir as a starter, as a culture.
For cheeses too?
For cheeses, for we just kind of strain off our kefir to be a yogurt. For sour creams, for all of that, we just use that master culture of a kefir. And I love that because all you have to do is feed your kefir every day, remove the grains. So kefir, I'll back up a little bit, has a grain in it. We call it a grain, but it's actually a SCOBY, which is a symbiotic colony of yeast and bacteria.
Wow,
bacteria and yeast. Did I do it?
But it looks like little grains.
It looks like little grains, or like a little cluster of cauliflower.
Call it kefir grains. You'll hear people say that, right?
And so you need to feed those grains pretty much every day.
Feed
new
the
milk.
beasties.
Feed the little yeasty beasties. That's right. So you got to put those grains into a clean jar and give it some fresh milk in order to keep it fed. But then what's left in the jar that you just took them out of is a cultured milk product called kefir. It's very much like a yogurt, except for it's a little runnier than that. And
it's also very helpful for digestion. It has helped my digestion out a lot.
Well, unlike most yogurts, it has a much wider range of a bacteria and yeast, of a culture.
Yeah.
It has a lot more culture. It's much more cultured than yogurt.
Cultured?
Cultured culture.
Okay.
So that means that you've got those mesophilic and those thermophilic cultures in it, which I know those sound really technical, but a mesophilic culture is something that doesn't need to be very warm. You can culture it usually at room temperature, whereas the thermophilic, for cheeses or different things like that, it needs to be cultured a little bit warmer.
Do you remember what the temperature break is? I want to say that's in 100.
I want to say it's about 110, but I'm not 100%
right, okay,
sure on
it's
that
close,
one.
yeah, somewhere.
So, some yogurts you need to incubate and keep them warm while you're culturing them. That's because it's a thermophilic culture. So that kefir that I make takes the place of both the mesophilic and the thermophilic cultures, which is really, really helpful. So what that means is I can culture yogurt with it if I want to make yogurt. I can culture sour cream with it. I can make cultured butter with it. I can make all different cheeses. All the different cheeses you can make, I can make with the kefir. So it becomes this really powerful tool, which means you don't need to bring in these powdered, freeze-dried cultures over and over again. And if you'll know, they're pretty expensive, and a lot of times they're made with GMO ingredients, which I just don't like. I don't want to do that. And I would rather have something that I can just make from my own milk. They'll last forever as long as you keep them healthy. So the kefir grains.
Right.
So that's a really important key for us in our home for whatever we want to make out of our milk.
So I'm taking away two of our top priorities with milk is butter and kefir. Kefir not in volume, but kefir for its different uses for other products. And so let's make sure we cover a little bit what are the core products. There's so much you can do with dairy and different directions you can go. And I think people want to know, for our household, for a functioning day-to-day household, not necessarily all the specialty things, but what are the different products that we're turning that milk into on a regular basis?
Okay, so aside from the butter and the kefir, with a little bit of that for drinking, we're making a couple of different types of cheese pretty much on a weekly basis. We've got mozzarella, ricotta, and a cheddar.
You call it a farmhouse cheddar.
It's a quick process cheddar.
Yeah, homestead cheddar, farmhouse
cheddar.
Yeah, it's much shorter.
Much shorter process. And those are the basics that we use regularly in our house. So those keep us from having to buy very much.
Now we have, you can obviously go all kinds of different directions with different cheeses and different dairy products. So we're just trying to cover what we use as a functional use of the milk.
Yeah.
Now, we have a couple of waste products, and we try not to waste anything. So from the butter, you've got the buttermilk. and from any of the cheeses you have the whey.
Right.
And so how do those fit into the kitchen and the homestead?
Okay, so it's really important to realize that the stuff that comes off of out of your cream after your butter clumps and then you have the leftovers is not buttermilk like you would buy from the store. Buttermilk like you buy from the store is actually just a cultured milk. That's why you can, I don't even know what to say about it. It's a different product. It is not the same thing.
But it didn't used to be. I mean, farms used to take the buttermilk. I know my grandpa grew up actually drinking the buttermilk from the farm.
Okay, and so that would always come from cultured butter, which in the United States, we tend to mostly have sweet cream butter, which means the cream has not been cultured at all before it's turned into butter.
Right.
You can make a cultured butter and end up with a cultured buttermilk, but it still won't be like what you now buy in the store.
It's not going to be like the Knutson's yellow buttermilk.
Old-fashioned buttermilk was a different product, really, than what we think of as buttermilk. And so it's very usable and it's very good.
Well, it's very good. I mean, it's okay to me, but the kids, a lot of times, they seem to go through phases, but they really like it.
Sometimes they really like it, sometimes they don't so much. And the pigs always love it, so sometimes it goes to the pigs. Now you can of course bake with it, you can do a lot of things with it,
so it's quite usable.
It's very usable in the kitchen.
You've just extracted most of that'd be the proteins and the fats.
You've extracted most of the fats. Yes, you've extracted most of the fats at that point. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and so there is a use for that buttermilk even if you don't like drinking it. The dogs will sometimes drink it. You can certainly mix it in even for the chickens. Pour it over we have a chicken bucket where a lot of our scraps go to. You can just pour it in there.
Yep.
And mostly if you have pigs, the pigs will really consume it, and that's a great place for it. And pigs are another whole area that fit into a great system.
Yes.
After a dairy cow. But the whey. So then for making cheese.
Leftovers for making cheese, or if you're straining off your kefir or your yogurt to get a thicker product, would be the whey. And of course there's a ton of great uses for that too. One is getting it into beverages. That is a really, you're at we go out and we buy as a culture whey protein stuff. You can just use your own whey. It's fine. But it doesn't taste very good. So you really need to add something to it. It needs to be mixed into something for it to taste good. It's great for use as a base for soups. It's wonderful to be used to make bread out of, and different places like that. It's just a higher nutrition than water. So anywhere where you're going to use water in your baking, you can stick whey in instead, and it's going to pick up that nutrition. And usually when it's in a baked good or something like that, you just can't even taste the difference. While it doesn't taste great to drink plain, it's not a real strong flavor. So it's, if you use it in a soup or anything where there's other flavors, those flavors are going to mask it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a key takeaway, is realizing that even the leftover products from your dairying can be reused in the home and not necessarily just to the animals.
That's right. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Now, another thing that I really want to touch on for a moment here, I know we're getting a little tight on time, is that especially when you're using raw milk from a good source, you can use the old farmhouse method of clabbering your milk, which means you leave it sit out on your counter for several days until it gets thick. The first time I did this, I've got to tell you, I opened that jar with trepidation. I was sure it was going to be so disgusting smelling.
What we've been taught.
It's what we've been taught. And I opened that jar and it was as sweet smelling as milk out of the refrigerator. And I was completely blown away. This is after it had sat in a warm kitchen on the counter for about 5 days.
How did it taste?
It tasted cultured. And so...
Which we often assume, especially in the United States, as a bad taste. It's a different taste, and we do some cultured butter sometimes, and it is a flavor that you have to get used to, but because it's different, like if you decide to try this, you totally can.
Yeah.
It's gonna have a different flavor. That doesn't mean it's bad.
Right. And I have a whole video out on clabbering milk and even making cheese from your clabbered milk.
We'll get that in the link on the end here.
Because there's a way to make it taste even less cultured then, and that's by using, you know, doing one batch of clabbered milk, and once it clabbers, that means it's filled with all sorts of really good bacteria in there for you. And so you take a little bit of that batch and start your next batch of clabber with a little spoonful of that in there, and it just pretty much seeds the new jar of fresh milk with that good bacteria, so it makes it culture faster, which keeps those flavors much more mellow. So this is a really good thing to know, that you can do this for yourself, you can do it for your family to eat or to use as products. But what it also does is if you have way too much milk, it makes it solid. It makes it into a much more solid form. So think yogurt. Think like a thick yogurt, and it allows you to give it to animals like chickens, and it doesn't just run all over into the ground and absorb right into the dirt because it's in the solid form, and the chickens love it. They go crazy over clabbered milk. It's very good for them. So sometimes, you know, you just get completely overrun with this great milk, and I've already pulled the cream off, and so I have the most important products, but I just have too much milk and I don't have the time to make the cheese out of it. And so this is what we do in our homestead to turn that into yet another usable product, even if it's not going to be used in our kitchen for us to eat.
Okay, so I've got to cover one though before we go, because we're about to wrap up, and we have covered how to really use all your milk in a very healthy and nutritious way.
Right.
But we missed one of the most important uses of milk on the homestead.
Which is?
Ice cream! You gotta have ice cream.
It's almost 4th of July, and there is a tradition around here to have a homemade ice cream sandwich.
Absolutely. Homemade cookies.
With homemade ice cream.
With homemade ice cream in the middle. That's a 4th of July specialty here. And if you were doing all the work to have a dairy animal, now I can't speak for goat ice cream. I mean, I feel like I've had that somewhere, but so I'm not going to address that. But if you have a dairy cow and you're doing all that work and you're turning that dairy into all these fantastic products that are useful and valuable and healthy for the family, you gotta get a little ice cream in there and get a little of that reward.
Absolutely.
And throw a lot of sugar in it and some fruit.
Oh yeah.
And even some frozen chocolate chips. Or we do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But don't forget ice cream. You gotta have ice cream.
Well, and the reality is it all comes second to a good latte. At least for you and I.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we know we like our coffees.
Yep.
All right, you guys, that is it. Thanks for hanging with us and hanging through the noise and the rain and the machinery and everything.
Yeah.
But
we have no idea what we're going to talk about next week because we didn't talk about it.
We'll surprise you.
Yeah.
And, you know,
give us some ideas.
Give us some suggestions, some ideas. Absolutely. So thanks for hanging with us again. We hope this has been helpful and inspiring and educational. And please remember to give us a thumbs up, comment, share, and just pass it along if you would. And we will see you next week or next time. Hopefully next week.
Hopefully next week.
No
Have a great
promises.
week, you guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.